Hey, Lee Robinson here at American Sentinel K9. As I run an errand this morning, I want to make a video about breeding working dogs and also why or why not a person should get a dog from me. And the truth is, maybe you should, okay? And I don't mean that to be smart or disrespectful, but the goal is of a good breeder is to satisfy their clients. And the way a person is going to be satisfied is by having a dog that successfully fulfills the niche, which means the job that or role that they desire from that dog. And so, I breed dogs for a very particular niche. And the niche that I breed, or job that I breed my dogs for, is to be a family companion guardian. I'm not looking for vicious, unstable dogs that cannot be managed safely around my family. They have to be safe around my family. This is a requirement. But at the same time, they have to be very formidable and willing to remain engaged in a combative situation when an intruder arrives and pressures that dog, whether the pressure be physical or mental. And physical pressure can come in many forms. It can come in a form of pain. It can come in the form of endurance. And then mental pressure, of course, can be psychological stresses such as noise or distracting environments, objects that can be used to play with the dog's head. And so you want to be a really good family companion guardian. You need a dog that's stable, that's not going to redirect and just out of frustration and turn around and tag a member of the family. You want a dog that's clear-headed, that stays focused on the objective at hand. And but let's get back to about the art and the science of breeding. Now, many times I'll say breeding dogs is not like cooking. When a person is a cook, they have to be able to get certain ingredients, mix them together at the right ratios, put them in the oven at a certain amount of time, and also at a certain temperature. It's just basic chemistry. And once you learn the basic chemistry of preparing a certain dish, then the cooks are all equal. However, it's not the same for a chef, because a chef experiments and understands the food and knows what is able to imagine what these flavors will taste like when recombined with other ingredients. They know basically what works. They get a better understanding. However, that also is still a lot of science, a lot of chemistry. Art is different. Art is based off of the ability to see or perceive what has not yet been created, and to see and perceive what is being displayed in front of you, what is created, but interpreting it. So art is like reading and writing, where cooking is more like science and that type of thing. So, breeding dogs is both an art and a science. And because of this, there's a lot of people out there that are really good trainers that have the artistic type. They can just go out and work a dog. They got great athletic skills, good timing, good body language. They're good actors type of situations when they're on the training field. And they get the artist type aspects of training and manipulating a canine's behavior. So they have the art side down, but yet they still don't breed good dogs. And this is because they don't understand the science side. Then you have other people that have some understanding of the science, and maybe a lot of times, these people really don't have an in-depth understanding of science. When they read a pedigree, they look for famous names, and they look for the frequency of the famous names. And they might say a dog is, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times this, and they mention a certain name. Like, let's say Adam. Okay, the dog they have a puppy, and they say it's 3 times Adam. But if it's 3 times Adam all coming in from the bottom side of the pedigree, it's still less than 50% Adam. But yet if it's 3 times Adam coming in from the top and bottom of the pedigree, it might be as much as 87.5% Adam. So they don't understand how to actually decipher the pedigree a lot of times, even from a scientific approach. But let's just say they do. Let's just say they totally get the total science of it. But if they even after they have the science of it, if they don't have the ability to have the artistic type of it, which is reading the dog's behavior, they're still going to be unsuccessful as a breeder. So as a good breeder or even an owner, you need to have a good balance and good understanding of both the art side and the science side of canine development. And also let's look at another aspect of it in terms of breeding, and that is population genetics is different than an individual dog's genetics. As an owner, we just need to find a good individual. As a trainer, we just need to find a good individual, and that's what we're going to deal with. But when a person is a breeder, they have to deal with the entire population. So now population genetics is different than simple individual genetics, because when you're dealing with population genetics, you don't just look at the traits that make up the dog. You look up the traits and genes that make up the entire gene pool. So, if you're interested in becoming a breeder, I really recommend that you study the foundation effect and also gene flow and also genetic drift. So I'm going to try to help some of the people out with these three terms, because these three terms, in addition to genetic mutation, is what drives evolution, the evolution of a breeding program. So the founder effect is where you're going to bottleneck your genes to create your original base for your gene pool. So you go out and you find really good specimens that you would like to purchase, and I recommend that you find the best individuals that you can that display the traits that you desire from a population of dogs that are very well known to have those traits. So therefore, you're increasing your chance of harnessing those genes that you're looking for in your foundation. Now, once you've obtained good specimens to work with, you're going to still have to deal with this bottlenecking, because you're going to concentrate some of those genes into your next generation, but some of those genes may be lost unless you have a large enough population size where you're able to get different combinations of those genes, because each individual is only 50% of one parent and 50% of another parent. And their siblings are going to also be 50% of each other, because let's just say me and my brother, I'm 50% of my dad, my brother is 50% of my dad, but my brother may have a different 50% than I do. So let's imagine that here's this pie, and I'm cutting this half, but my brother's cutting the bottom half. So we only have, there's so many alleles there, that the odds of him and I sharing a gene from my father is only 25%. But then we have another 25% coming in from the mother. So we're focusing on individuals here, but the point is siblings are only 50% related to each other, 25% from each parent. Now, when you have a large enough sample size, because of these percentages, you can increase the capturing of those foundational genes. But when you have a small sample size, you're really going to bottleneck only some of those genes through. Well, the success of a program is going to be very dependent upon the gene pool that one has to work with. And when you're dealing with creating a new breed of dog, as I have done for the last 20 years, you have an isolated gene pool with a smaller sample size, a smaller population to work with. And if you're dealing with a breed that already exists, you have a much larger gene pool, because you can work with other breeders much more easily. Fortunately for me, after 20 years, I've been able to keep a pretty large sample size on my yard, because I have 9 acres in a rural area. If I lived in a urban area, it would be much more difficult to have the sample size that I need to sustain the development and success of the programs that we've been able to achieve. Also, after 20 years, I've slowly over time picked up several other people that have became members of the ASC program, the American Sentinel K9 program, and we've had many clients, hundreds of clients, but most people don't want to be a breeder. And then the people that do want to be a breeder, some of them lack the artistic side, and other ones lack the science side. And then you can counsel those people and help them be successful. but only if they have the dedication to develop the skill set required to become proficient in the art of breeding dogs, working dogs. So anyway, now you got your foundation, and you've bottlenecked some of those genes, but hopefully you've captured enough of the genes that you desire, while at the same time culling out the genes that you don't desire. So some bottleneck is still required to eliminate and remove the genes that you don't desire in your gene pool. Now, after you have your foundation, with not just the dogs that you bought, but the next couple, and you're not going to do this in just one generation. It's going to take several generations for you to filter this program to build a gene pool for the breed that you're working on. But then after you've done that, you're still going to deal with gene flow. Now, I've taught genetics for over 20 years, and so I want to differentiate and show you the little trick that I tell my students to help them to remember the difference between gene flow and genetic drift. Well, the last letter in flow is a W. Take that W and turn it over. Gene flow is migration. That's an M. Remember, gene flow is migration. Migration is dealing with genes that are moving into, like you're outcrossing to someone else's dog, or out of, meaning you have culled or removed an individual from your program. So it's immigration with an I and immigration with an E. Immigration with an I means moving into the population. Immigration with an E is actually, that word does exist, you can look it up, is exiting a population. So, you have genes that come into the population that you're going to capture and keep within those genes. And if you allow that to occur, then you also have to remember to also include the opposite of that, which is genes moving out of the population. So this is gene flow. You're going to have to be careful about what genes you bring into your population by selecting individuals that are worth opening your stud book to allow them to become a potential portion of the gene pool. Now, to do that, again, you have to think with the same mindset of the founder effect. Be careful about what you're bringing in. And then when you do bring it in, I recommend that you don't do so haphazardly. Find a really good individual in your gene pool and then outcross that individual to the individual that you're migrating into your population. And then take that next generation and make sure that individual has the traits that you desire, but does not have any significant undesired traits, because you don't want those undesired traits to become part of your population. And if there are undesired individuals in that population, don't use it, okay? Just eliminate that, because yes, it is a waste of time, but it's much better for the longevity of your program to be careful about infusing dogs into your gene pool that have undesired traits, if those undesired traits are things to be concerned about. Now, minor undesired traits may not be a big deal, but some undesired traits are a very big deal, so you may need to be careful about having a hierarchy of what's important and what's not important. For example, if the ear's a little longer or a little shorter, that may not be a big deal if it's minute changes, but if you have some sort of mutation in the functionality of the dog or ability of the dog to perform its niche, or instability of the dog, or some sort of health issue, then obviously those are going to be very important things that you need to eliminate. Now that we understand what gene flow is, which is migration of genes in and out of the gene pool, let's look at genetic drift. Genetic drift is strongly associated with the Darwin steps of natural selection, which is overproduction of offspring, which there you get variation in the population, which is caused by sexual reproduction. And then you have overproduction of offspring and variation within the offspring. Those are the first two steps. The third step of natural selection is competition for limited resources. So when you compete for limited resources, that means some individuals are going to lose the competition. They're not going to find those limited resources. And that's in natural selection. But in artificial selection, we have the same type of process, but instead of competing for resources, they're competing for service. Whichever ones serve us the best, we are going to provide them the resources that they need. And then the last step is we identify the winners of that service or resource, and those individuals are going to breed to, or be bred to produce the next successive generation. And after you do this for many generations, repetitively, you're going to alter the frequency of the alleles that are desired or undesired within the population. And this altered frequency of alleles is what establishes the type of dogs a breeder produces. And this is also what establishes the type within a breed. So anyway, I just got to my destination, and I hope that this video was helpful to you. Y'all have a blessed day.